So we are continuing our Switzerland tour, and we are here at another job site. 2 levels of doctor offices on the first 2 levels of this building, and then we have rental units above. So this is a multi-family building. You can see behind me they have the siga MyVest up on the wall. What might look different to you if you look close enough, this is actually the MyVest 200, so it's actually the mechanically fastened membrane versus the self-adhered that we've been using on our Rhode Island project and our Needham project. And what you might also notice is that typically this is a dark blue. They're going through a rebrand with this, and they're going to be changing the color to match the MyVest 500, which is the self-adhered. I haven't been in this building yet, so this is going to be live. We're going to walk through the construction site. You're going to get my thoughts as I'm walking through it live. So why don't we head in? Another crane on the job site, tower crane. This is sitting on top of some concrete pads, precast feet, and then 3150 kilograms stacked up, basically creating this counterweight with a fixed boom. Pretty cool seeing the amount of cranes here in Switzerland. I mean, we drove by one job on the way here. It literally had 8 cranes over a single building. Pretty amazing. Right off the bat, looking at that siga and seeing that, you know, mechanically fastened membrane, and then switching to the MyPel, which I haven't used in the past. It's actually a new product to me on this trip. Then you can start to see their cladding get installed on the outside. They have this precast panel, flashing detail, and then their wood batten, so probably some sort of panel detail as it goes up and out. But really intentional around all the penetrations, and obviously they're going to come back and tape that. But what you're seeing is a hybrid construction in here, similar to the other project that we walked, but concrete structure here. It looks like we have a concrete elevator shaft, and then some concrete floors, but then CLT panels and steel. Again, you're seeing a lot of the wire loom. So it just continues to be super interesting to see how they do the electrical so differently. Mike from Greenside in Chicago, they actually run EMT everywhere, which is similar, but obviously this is a lot easier than that. So we're just gonna peek around, see what's going on. Cast in place concrete stairs, pretty typical. I think that, you know, in Boston we see a lot of hybrid where it's steel and cast in place. A lot of ductwork, a lot of spiral ductwork. Didn't ask the specifics about the mechanical system just yet, but a lot of these systems are designed just for ventilating, so exhausting stale air and bringing in fresh air. And then the heating and cooling is typically done with some sort of radiant, which I'm going to assume would probably be similar here. It's almost as though this has a rat slab, meaning that the concrete's been placed and, you know, not burnished or detailed, because there's going to likely be something built up on top of it. You can kind of get that feeling at the elevator entry too. You got about 8 inches step up into that elevator, so I'm thinking that there's probably some sort of soundproofing, maybe similar to the other job, and then a build up, you know, from there. All of their wallboard is all stapled up. You're seeing that double layer, you know, as well. And that's pretty standard everywhere, you know, on both sides here. You know, I'm not sure what this room is, but it's always double layer. And then from here, they're typically plastering it. This maybe not, maybe it's prepped for a tile because there is no bevel here. The ones that I've seen in the past have been beveled. But again, this is gonna be a doctor's office level. There may be different finishes than I would expect. Interesting as well, a lot, you know, maybe for either, that looks like it's tied into the mechanical system, but being that it's a doctor's office, I'm not entirely sure, but it's interesting to see that it's made out of plastic, very similar to the wire loom. You can see a lot of the plumbing in the floor, you know, everything is, anytime there is plumbing in the floor, they're always adding this rubberized gasket around it, essentially allowing the pipe to move separately from the concrete. So if anything settles, you're not snapping plumbing connections or worse, snapping a plumbing pipe. I'm gonna assume downstairs is likely parking, so we're gonna head up. Like I said, concrete, cast in place concrete steps will probably get finished over time. Nice safety rails that are clamped down and, you know, nice and bright, and, you know, safety is obviously number one in a lot of these. It should always be number one, but, you know, is clearly number one on a project like this. So again, you have that step down, so it makes me think that this floor is going to be built up, again, soundproofing, things like that. Again, the wire loom, we have purple now. So looking at a mechanical equipment, a mechanical list like this, you know, they're probably going to figure out I don't even know where to start, to be totally honest. I want to see if I can locate that. I don't see it on here, but point being is that everything's going to have a path, and they're going to run that loom from location to location and figure out what it needs to be. But you know, there's some sort of color chart that's going to determine, you know, what color they're running where. So again, I think this is going to be an HVAC item. So this is tying into, you know, likely that that metal ductwork in the common area, and then these plastic boots. It's interesting to see how much plastic they use, you know, between the wire loom and this heating and cooling, or ventilation, or HVAC, I should say. Really, you can actually see the same outlet on this sheet metal box. So it's probably sheet metal to the individual room and then switches to plastic. So why don't we go upstairs? We're still on doctor's level. And then we'll take a peek on this floor, and then we'll head out and take a look at the outside envelope. So you can actually see this floor is stepped up, and this is very similar to the other unit, where there's likely a soundproofing below this, and then concrete floor, and we're about 6 inches of build up here. You can see this depression in the slab. You start to see this is actually a radiant manifold here, so then you have that radiant, you can actually see the radiant tubing installed here. So if I were to guess, this is some sort of soundproofing and insulation layer that's going to allow that radiant to only come up into the floor above it, rather than sinking into the concrete, what I called rat slab below. And again, you have all of this plastic corrugated HVAC, and again, this is going to be for, you know, I'm assuming ventilation, whether it's exhausting stale or bringing in fresh air. And again, I just, you know, I'm prefacing, we have very short time here, so I wanted to show you guys what was going on. I didn't have a chance to ask that question. You know, knowing that there's radiant in the slab and it's being built at a very high level from an air tightness, makes me believe it's ventilating air over supplying cool air, but it could very well be used for air conditioning as well. I'm mostly enamored by the fact that it's corrugated plastic. Check out this. You have these almost 2x3 studs, and this is almost like a carpet pad material. So it's like a recycled padding material. And you got to think it's being designed for sound. So as you know, you're in this room, you're not transferring sound into that next room, which I'm not sure what it is. It might be a bedroom. Yeah, I would assume it's got to be a bedroom. And they have that sound, that basically sound break all the way around, plus this 5/8 board, and it's very, very dense. So I mean, that's one thing I've noticed in a lot of these buildings. It's really quiet, and they do a really good job with sound control. I think about what we've done in the US and some of the commercial projects I've been on. We're using light gauge metal, sometimes a 2x3 wall. That wall gets filled with fiberglass, and then you're doing 1/2 inch, maybe 5/8 drywall on it. It's not a very sound proof room, and here the use of timber, the use of thick gypsum board, the use of products like that with, you know, that sound break in the middle of the stud, you know, obviously makes a big difference. I also noticed that a lot of, you know, beyond the CLT panels above, even those studs, these are all engineered stud, so you're really getting a true flat, straight wall. Makes a big difference. Let's talk about these windows. So traditional, you know, for Swiss, you're gonna have locked, you're gonna have a swing, and then this is gonna be a tilt turn. I really like this because being that they don't oftentimes have air conditioning in these buildings, because it doesn't get overly hot, and if you maintain the climate inside, you really can do a good job tempering it with just opening a window like this and getting a cross breeze. You know, this week that we're here, which is the beginning of August, we're not actually seeing, or we're actually in a heat wave, and we're seeing, you know, about 80 degrees. I'm in pants and I'm comfortable outside. I want to talk about these doors with the beauty of them and the timber. That operates really nice. So this is going to be a lift and slide. So when it shuts and you spin this handle up, that's going to drop down in place, and they get the name from when you're ready to slide it, and you turn that handle down, it's going to lift, and then you're going to slide. The nice thing about these doors is when they drop down, they have a really, really nice tight seal, and they can be a very high performing door. But how about the fact that we're in the middle of construction? Look how clean the job site is. And I know that, we were coming for a tour, but based on all the construction sites that we've walked and the projects that we've been able to walk by and see, this is pretty standard for them. And these doors are not inexpensive doors and windows, and there's not an overly abundance of protection on them. And maybe they pulled them off for us to see, but the fact of the matter is this is a finished product. This is a finished outside corner, and you can tell by the level of care that the guys have on site to make sure that this stuff doesn't get damaged. Out here is a small patio, but now we get to kind of see how some of this envelope comes together. And I'm gonna jump over here, step up here, all right? And this is gonna be, we're looking at the MyVest 200, so this is a mechanically applied product. So you're typically going to see cap staples or staples in general, but this is going to be our outside control layer, and then we have our timber rain screen, and then you're going to have some sort of panel on it so you get that full ventilation in here. And then they're using this, this appears to be temporary poly, but there's likely going to be some sort of detail. I would assume it's temporary because we're using duct tape. But there's going to be, this probably gets fully taped. It's timber and it's built up right now on top of the membrane, but this would get fully taped, and then sheet metal that runs up the wall. There's been a lot of great sheet metal window pans, especially so if you peek around here, this window is flush with the inside wall, and this is a very typical detail because you have these high performance window cavities. So you're gonna have a nice sheet metal pan that comes up, you have your weep holes here, so you're gonna tuck in underneath that, so any water that comes out is gonna roll out, and then they're gonna turn those pans up the wall high enough that cladding comes down and then helps all that water drain out. A very similar detail to what we did in our Rhode Island Passive project. Down here you can actually see that first sheet metal pan and how it comes together. So it looks like they're in the midst of installing it. Another great detail that I see on a lot of these projects is this. This is a wire, and it's going to be for some sort of outside shade. You guys had asked about these tilt turn windows in a previous video, and you can't install a shade, or what about a screen? Oftentimes in these European countries, and when they're doing these style windows, you're going to have this outside shade. Now we're looking into a balcony, so this is probably going to be some sort of bug screen, or maybe it is a shade system to help block the light back here, so you're not having to do it right in front of the doors. You can actually enjoy the outside space, but help block some of the sun. And that goes back to using high performance windows and doors, and having a really good tight envelope, and then monitoring the amount of sun and solar gain you're going to have. So you don't really need to rely on cooling systems. You're more relying on fresh air, cross breeze, and then the overall high performance envelope of this building. It's evident the care and detail that these guys put into it, how neat the job site is. I mean, you were staying up on the scaffolding, even looking down there, everything is nice and organized. They have different bins for different waste material. They have all of their material organized in a way that makes sense. We constantly are working to refine, myself, my team, constantly looking at ways that we can be more efficient, more organized, and be less wasteful. Being here and seeing the way that they operate gives me a lot of inspiration and a lot of thought about future projects for us. We appreciate you sticking around. We got one more stop, actually I think 2 more stops on our Swiss tour, and a big thank you to Siga Swiss and Siga North America for inviting us out here and giving us the opportunity to see these incredible projects. So we'll see you on the next one.